Okay, the Etude in C minor by Chopin, Opus 25, number 12. This piece is not too difficult to learn, just, note-wise. Very straightforward, but the technique that is involved with this piece is pretty tricky to get under your belt. It's fairly straightforward to get it to sort of an intermediate level where you can play it fairly quick, but to get it at, full speed, that takes a little bit more practice. So with this tutorial, I'm going to give you the notes. Of course, I'll give you the fingerings, all the rest of it, but I'll spend a little bit extra time speaking about the technique and how to achieve a faster execution of this music and the steps you need to take, set the groundwork so that you can actually play this as fast as you want. Okay, so here is what the piece sounds like. I'll play the first, I don't know, 10 seconds or so. Okay, so that's more or less how it is. Now you can tell that there's a lot of repeating material when it comes to the notes and the harmony. So the first steps to take with this piece are going to be to figure out the positions, the harmony, and see how that is replicated up the various octaves. But before we get started, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment, and hitting that notification bell. That means quite a lot to the channel. It shows YouTube that you find this content worthwhile and that it is worth promoting. Okay, so here is what we'll begin with. First thing is first, before we get into the technique of going up and down this, let's figure out what the harmonies are. So we start in C minor, 5, 2, 1 on the left, and 1, 2, and 5 in the right. Very comfortable, very standard. That position right here fills up the whole of the first bar. It's just that you go up various octaves. See, the notes are the same, we're just traveling up the octaves. That's the first thing to learn. The second thing to learn is the harmony of the next bar. That's down here. Same fingerings in both the hands, 5, 3, 1 in the left, 1, 3, 5 in the right. Like that. Same kind of thing. So on. So first, the second, the third is up here. That's 5, 2, 1 at the bottom. And 1, 3, 5 up top. This is 4 of C minor, resolving back in the next bar to C minor, which is what we started with. So. Learn that first. Now, once you have that in position and in your pocket, we begin learning the technique that is required for you to be able to travel up the octaves. Now, you can see what happens here is you play the same notes that we learned just a moment ago, but broken. So from the bottom to the top, the last note will be switched to the thumb and replaced. See? And that begins the next group of 3. Same thing, replaced with the thumb. That begins the next group of 3. That's all it is. It's not complicated. That's the top, and then we head back the exact same way. Switch to 5. Switch to 5. And this is your last note. Then the next one will begin. So once more, nice and slow. Switch to 1. Switch to 1. All the way to the pinky. Back down. Switch to 5. switch to 5, and finish on the 2. So you don't play that last E flat because the thumb will begin the next series. Okay. So with that in mind, I mean, that's really all there is to it. So let's talk a little bit about, the technique of it. How do you get it faster? What are the things to look out for? Obviously, the most important thing with this music is the transition from one to the other. The 5 to 1 or the 1 to 5 if you're on the way down, right? So obviously this is super easy to do. This is easy. It's all about the transitions. That's kind of the central focus of this piece. How do you make the transitions from one finger to the next, the repeated sections? How do you make that smooth? If you have that in mind, you'll know that the way to practice it has to be centered around how to make that jump smooth. This is what I would do to start. I would play it sort of medium fast, as fast as you can comfortably. So it could be as slow as you want or as slow as you can play it. Up to the jump. You're going to notice that my hand is generally facing forward. I'm not doing a lot of switching and moving around, right? I want it to face forward because that's the most efficient way for the hand to move, or the hand to be facing, if you want all of these movements to take up as little energy as possible, as little movement as possible. So, and what you can see I'm doing is gently collapsing my hand so that I can quickly reach the thumb. Don't go underneath, okay? Don't swing. Try to go through the note exactly towards the right. If you do this, you're cutting some corners and it's never going to get that fast. It has to go exactly horizontally, or as exactly as possible. That's some general principle here. Okay, so stop on that switched note, then begin the next. That's the practice. I would do that a bunch. And the reason I'm actually stopping is because I want all of these, how many notes are I guess 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All of these groupings of 3 to be finished in my head before I begin to play. I want to have a feeling sort of laid out in my head, a plan kind of laid out in my head before I begin the movement. So we start here. I have the next 3 notes in mind. Okay, ba-ba-bum, ready, go. Then we stop, reset, think again. Okay, what's the next one? Ready, go. Next, reset, go. Now here we don't need much because we're not switching. So we get all the way to the top. Stop there, and then same idea, groupings of 3. So same idea, have it planned out. Still facing forward. Now what you're going to notice on the way down, it's much harder in the right hand than it is going up. That's obviously because the thumb on the way up is very big. You can kind of look at it as you play. It's hard to miss it. It's hard to do that when it's such a massive thumb and it's flat. So it's not that hard to do. But on the way down, it's your pinky that has to land. And it's much thinner, right? You might not even see it because, your hand is covering it as you're doing the transition. So it's easy to make that mistake. It's easy to miss. Because of that, you may notice that your hand begins to tighten up as a way of securing the movement. Like, let's make sure everything is moving nice and accurately. So the instinct might be for your hand to start to tighten up so that it controls more. Don't let that happen. The last thing you want as you're starting to pick up speed is that you have a habit of retaining tension during a piece like this. This has to be as fluid as possible. That's how you can get it fast. It has to be fluid. So when you're doing these little initial steps, it really pays to take care of how you make these moves so that you stay loose. Initially, of course, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to slip a whole bunch. You're not going to be comfortable with it. It'll be very frustrating. But the priority has to be that the thumb, or the pinky rather, is loose, that the wrist is loose while you're doing this. And then over time, you'll get more comfortable with it and you'll become more accurate. But do not become more accurate by becoming tense. This is something that should really be kept in mind. One other thing that I noticed as I was playing this is allow your hand as you're going down, instead of thinking like, oh, the pinky's coming, let's go over to this new note. Don't do it that way. Try to have your hand face slightly towards, let's say, 1 o'clock. And so that your pinky's coming in from the bottom side, right? You're not going over to get this. It's almost going under. That might feel a little strange, especially because it seems so insecure. If you do this, you won't be able to see your pinky. So you're kind of hoping that it makes it. But I think that's the easiest way to get it up to speed, right? Is have your hand facing maybe 12:30 or 1 o'clock and kind of just glide across. Like that. Okay, those are your 2 steps for going up and going down. Very gentle, very controlled, and very patient. Don't speed this up soon. Give it time. Give it time to stew a little bit. All right, so that's the first thing. Now the left hand is going to be the same. So you can see there's basically a mirror image of the technique of the right hand in the left. So we know that this is our position that we begin with, right? From the start. So you'll start from the bottom and same technique employed. You can take a moment to pause, then go. Try to have it mapped in your head. There's the end, and then we head back. Actually, I should stop right there. That's the end of the bar. The next bar begins with C again, but that's the next position. That's this one. So we stop as far as the harmony is concerned. This is the end. And just be aware of how it feels to do this. It should be very loose and secure, very comfortable. If you're feeling a little tension, to make sure that you hit it, eliminate it. Even if that means hitting a few wrong notes along the way, that's okay. The priority has to be a loose wrist and a loose hand. There's your first bar. Okay, so that'll be about the first steps. Now you can see, of course, that since the hands are mirror images of one another, the way up will probably be a little bit harder than on the way down, because it's a switch on the 5th finger, the small finger. Thankfully, in the left hand, it's white notes, which are a little bit easier, less slippery than if you were on the black notes. But it's just something to look out for. Again, on the way up will be a little bit harder than on the way down. See, the thumb is gonna lead every one of these switches, which is easier than leading with the pinky. Okay, once you have that more or less finished, you feel comfortable and confident with that in both the hands, then begin slowly with both hands. Same idea. 3 notes, moving up. Right? And don't let any tension creep in to make sure that you hit the wrong notes. Keep it loose, even if that, again, even if that means you're going to make a mistake, that's okay. Think of the notes and fly. Think of the notes and then fly. You should feel free. keep everything in mind. Don't have any blank spots. Don't have anything where you're kind of hoping. Try to have everything under very loose, under careful control, but with a loose hand. That's the goal of this slow practice. Down. There's your first one. Okay, before I go into the next one, let me give you some tips about stitching up each one of these so that you have less of a space, right? So right now we have we stop here and then stop here, right? When you begin to stitch them up nice and slow, the goal will be to eliminate right now there's several movements, right? There's a movement, stop, a movement, stop. So there's 2 or 3 movements, right? The goal is going to be to make everything on the way up a single movement. So in some deep sense that the hands are just moving across and then the fingers are just playing along the way. That's the goal, right? So once you begin stitching it up, you're going to have to stitch over the gaps and make it feel not like there's still 3 movements, but you're trying to make them, sound very clean and sound very glossed over, but one single movement. It's a slight adjustment to the technique because you're going to be used to using stop, go movements. Try to erase that and kind of start with a blank slate. Start with a blank slate. Your fingers know, your brain knows, your memory is intact, everything is ready to go. You know how to play these. But then it's almost like you begin with a blank slate and start fresh with one movement to the right. There can still be a little bit of a halting feeling to it, where you're just like, go, slow down, but it should all be within, I guess, the context of one movement, right? It doesn't restart. It just keeps going with a bit of a lilt, a little bit of a slow down, speed up. And then when you really hit the fastest tempos, it really will be a single. Like there really isn't any space to slow down and speed up because it's all so fast. So the goal is going to be to make everything kind of just fly in one movement up and fly in one movement down. Those are the principles in this piece. If you keep those in mind and are continually working towards keeping it loose, single movements, watching the transitions, then this piece, that's more or less the key to it. Now it's just a question of learning the notes. So let me give you the next few. We have the first all done. This is where we end off. Now the next one begins. If you remember, that's this, right? Okay, so this is the thing and the exact same technique. And you can do this hand separately. So you can rewatch this as necessary to learn each of the hands separately. And there it is. Same exact technique. All done. Next. Okay. Same sort of thing. We know this position, we know the fingerings, and then you just replicate it up the octaves. Then you bridge over into one movement up as much as possible. See, I'm really not changing much. I'm just trying to hold on to the pacing of it as far as, how far I'm jumping. I'm trying to hold on to the single move to the right. And the irony, sort of the sad irony of all this is actually, as you get better at it, as you get faster, the technique of moving in one direction up and down becomes easier, right? Because there's really no space to slow down or speed up. So that's the next one. And then the fourth bar is the same as the first, so nothing new. Cool. Those are the first 4 bars of the piece. Put them together, nice and slow, single movements up and back down. And then we'll move right along. Each one of these bars gets its own pedal. So that's one, and then change, and then change, and so on and so forth. So every one of those harmonic changes or positional changes coincides with a pedal change as well. That's about it. This is a very long first part because I wanted to make sure the principles are in place. And then we're going to move on to the next part of the tutorial, which will give you more of the notes. So follow along with me. The rest of this tutorial is going to be on the website. Come and join me over there. It's free, so give it a try. Like it's completely risk-free. You can try this thing, and if you don't like it, cancel the membership, and you will not be charged anything at all. But it's a way for you to continue this piece with no risk. The sheet music will be up there, the full tutorial. So I'll see you on there pretty soon. And subscribe, please, if you feel like it was fun and good and useful. Leave a comment and hit the notification bell.